Thanks for joining us for another episode of Triple Play. Please subscribe, like, and share. Right, Scott?
Yeah, you got to like and subscribe.
Yep. Help us get the word out. And don't forget to check in with our guy, Andy McCallum, with Resource One at 636-458-1798. We love those guys, and he has been helping us a ton. What?
What was that telephone number? I got to write it down.
It is 636-458-1798.
Okay.
Yep. And then we got CS Design, who helped us with our intro, outro, the website that's getting ready to be launched, and a few other things. And you can reach out to him at
573-436-3717.
All right. We got Scott helping out today. Right. So, all righty. All that said, thanks again for checking us out today. And today, as you notice, we got a great guest on, and Scott's dad, Mr. Andy Van Slyke.
Yep.
So
Andrew James.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, he was drafted by the Cardinals, right?
I was.
You were drafted by the Cardinals?
79.
Yeah. And so you came up playing for him. Your debut was 83, right?
83.
Yeah. You know, here's something funny. Hey, Scott, do me a favor. This is totally off script, but Scott, reach behind you. Grab that brown book behind you. You see it up there?
Yeah, I got it.
Grab that. I got to show your dad this. This is funny. This is me. First ball game I ever went to was the 82 World Series, by the way. Come here. This is my scrapbook.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I grabbed.
Also scrapbooks.
Man, I was a kid. I was a poor kid.
The girl from Trolls.
So I got here's your 85. Here's everybody, man. I was a huge Cardinal fan. I mean that's.
How old were you in 85?
85. I was born in 74, so 11.
Yeah, that's like peak. Love baseball.
Yeah, I 82. My dad's first game. Oh, I didn't realize I had those on there. Woody Williams. There's some Matheny's.
Are we giving away any signed cards, Josh?
I got Albert Pujols. Should I get some?
I don't know.
These aren't signed, but I got tons of cards. I go in my office and I got Christian Family Day cards up and down. I hand them out all the time. Kids want an Albert Pujols card or Sotaguchi. I got a bunch in Japanese that are for Sotaguchi.
Who's that?
Do you remember Sotaguchi? He was an outfielder for the Cardinals. He helped us get to the 06 World Series. He's actually coaching in Japan, and I'm trying to reach out to him to see during this World Baseball Classic if he can help us out with that. So he's a great guy. Him and Amiko, his wife, great people. Not too many people know this, but I'll just share it. It isn't a big deal. But his next door neighbor is going to Mizzou. So his next door neighbor that he grew up with, the son of the next door neighbor, came over here when he played for the Cardinals, fell in love with St. Louis, and just wanted to come here when he got old enough. So as soon as he graduated hig's school, he came here, and he's been going to Mizzou, and he comes into St. Louis and hangs out with the Bowens, who we've had on here, and a few other folks. So is a great guy. Most depressing letter I ever read was Amiko's letter, email, when he got traded to Philly and he played that first season in Philly. They hated it. He said it was the most depressing,
You played in Philly.
I played.
He did not like it. That was your last season too, right? Philly was your last?
Yeah. It's well, at the time, Philadelphia was in the World Series in '93, and so I was there in '95. So it was just a couple years after they won the World Series, and things had deteriorated at that point. And Lenny Dykstra was the center fielder, and he had gotten hurt, so that's why I got traded over there from Baltimore.
Oh, wow. So you were part of – wow, I didn't realize that. I remember Lenny Dykstra. I remember him getting hurt. I didn't realize you were part of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I remember why you got traded.
They were bad. I was bad. Everything was bad.
You were bad?
Yeah.
Philly was fun, if that's any consolation. I liked Philly. I liked the house in Philly.
So what made you – I mean, you were really, really good with the Cardinals. You were really, really good with the Pirates. I mean, you were – in my mind – I mean, this is just as a fan, but in my mind, that outfield was maybe one of the best outfields of all time. I mean, Barry Bonds on one side, Bobby Bonilla on the other side, and you in center field.
Yeah.
I mean, that's three great ball players in their prime. I mean, you were fast. You are the – I call you kind of you were the first player that I can remember who would play that nice hop. You know, you saw Jimmy Edmonds do that a little bit too. and he became known as kind of Jimmy Ball. But you were the first one I actually saw it when the outfield and the center field played the hop a lot, the way you
Crow
did.
hop.
Yeah, the crow hop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grow up, yeah.
Yeah, you were really good at that.
That's not even taught anymore.
No, it's not. Unfortunately.
They just teach a little shuffle.
Yeah.
Well, so me and a couple guys at the gym, we always tease about the crow hop, and we always, we clown around in the gym, and so yeah. But you were kind of the first guy I remember growing up seeing somebody who really the crow hop. You just landed that and did it so well, and then it kind of disappeared. We had Ray Langford, and he wasn't much of a crow hopper. He was just fast. And then in comes Jimmy Edmonds, and Jimmy Edmonds was the next guy I remember.
If you look at old films of Major League Baseball, it was actually the thing that they taught in the outfield. And so it wasn't something I just did better than anybody else. It's just that I was taught to do it that way, and I just kept repeating it. And I still think it's the best way to gather centrifugal. The thing about throwing and hitting, you're basically doing the same thing. You gather centrifugal force to release centrifugal force. And I think that's the best way to do it when it comes to crow hopping and throwing a baseball. And the best hitters in the game, they gather energy from the ground up to their waist, and then they release the baseball bat with their hands. And so it's sort of the same thing when you crow hop. You gather all your energy in your lower half so you can release your upper half. So it's really not that different from hitting.
Did you do it when you were in the outfield? I mean,
Yeah, when applicable. I mean, there's certain times where
Yeah, I mean,
you ball you can't.
you didn't play center a lot either, so I mean, I think it's more common in center.
Not a lot of center.
It's actually more common in right field because that's the longest throw.
Okay.
So, but look, you can get away with sty stuff, and whatever works. But I think fundamentally, if I was ever in a position, which I was at the big league, I would always try to teach my outfielders to crow hop.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah,
It's hard to, and here's the thing about that. It's, as you know, once you get to the big leagues and you've done a certain way for 5 or 6 years, or how many years you either played in college or in the minor leagues, it's hard to make a switch because you learn and you condition your body to throw a certain way. So a lot of times I just say, I'd let it go and just work on the guy's fundamentals the way he's learned how to throw.
Right. I just that it seems like the elite outfielders that I grew up watching, and you being one of them, that was especially center field. I mean, that's probably maybe it stuck out because you were so good, and so was Jimmy Edmonds. But I just remember in particularly those that happening. So that was a.
Well, I think it makes you more accurate. Keeps your downward angle on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
All those things.
Yeah.
Shuffle, ball can go right, can go left.
So we kind of got off space here because I was just saying you were part of that great outfield.
Right.
I mean, that was one of in my opinion, one of the best outfields maybe of all time. I mean, definitely.
I don't know about I don't
some
know
good
all
ones
time,
over
but
time.
when I look back at since I got to the big leagues, we had speed, power. We had 5 tools in the outfield.
Yeah.
That could at one point could either beat the other opposing team, which is actually the whole idea when you show up every night.
Yeah.
Try to beat the other
Try to beat the other team, right?
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
And if you happen to be off, that night hitting, well, do something defensively or do something on the bases. And Bobby Bonilla was limited as far as speed and outfield defensively, but Barry Bonds was so good defensively, had speed, had power. I was a combination of both. So on any given night, the three of us could beat the other team, which is you can't really say about every outfield position.
No. As I said, one of the better ones that I've seen. I mean,
think
athletic too.
The only year that I heard that would have been better would have been like the '61 Yankees.
Well, I mean, there's been some other good teams. I mean, the Cardinals have had some good outfields for short periods of time, but
like
not consistently.
Solid year after year.
That's what I was saying. I mean, just I look back even like the Cardinals when they had like Stan Musial, but the outfield was kind of every few years moving around, so you just don't have that consistency that you guys had for. I mean, Barry Bonds. That was before the growth stuff. That was when he was.
You gotta look at economics in today's game. It's really hard. I mean, if you got 3 All-Star outfielders, which we had at the time, it's hard to keep 3 All-Star outfielders on any particular team.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
and especially if they're young. We were all young. We were all in our prime, and you can't sign everybody unless you're the Mets or the Dodgers.
well,
yeah, the Dodgers did that pretty well when I was there. They had Matt Kemp, Andre Ethier, all those.
Trust me, I kept waiting for it. So the funny part about that is that every time I felt like you were going to break through and I was going to be able to cheer on Scott, they go out and get the greatest and best out there. It was like Scott's going to be first base. Oh, we just made a trade and got 3 people. And by the way, we got one of the best first basemen in baseball right now. Oh, back to outfield, Scott. Scott comes up, does really well. Looks like he's going to be in the offseason. They're calling you the starting right fielder or left fielder. Oh, we just went out and made a big trade and picked up Tim. You're now number 4.
It's when I look back at his career, I think when you look at the Dodgers back then, what's it, 2014, 13?
Yeah.
They weren't the Dodgers that the Dodgers are today. I mean, when you look back 10 years ago, they weren't a team that went out and just spent money religiously almost like they do today. So they had the ability to go out and get all-stars, but at the same time, you need role players.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, there was a period of time when he was actually the best player in the team, and yet they weren't winning enough, and they felt that they needed to go out and get
Exactly, and that's what I kind of meant. I mean, he was going to be the starting first baseman. He was going to be the starting right fielder.
When you look back, there wasn't a whole lot going on with the Dodgers before.
Yeah, well, that's when they.
2013.
That was.
So it's almost like he was part of the foundation of where the Dodgers are today, and I've kind of felt the same way with when I went from St. Louis to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh didn't really have the foundation to do anything well, and yet when you look back after we got done there, unlike the Dodgers, the Pirates just didn't have the resources to keep it going.
Right.
So
and it shows today, and honestly, they don't have a good plan. I mean, that's probably the Pirates' downfall today. Is not just that they don't spend money, but I mean, you could say that about like the Tampa Bay Rays. You could say that about the Royals recently won a World Series. They didn't spend a lot. They don't spend a lot of money. But the thing about the Pirates it seems like they have not got a plan to figure out how to keep that one or two they can keep 1 or 2 players. I mean, they spend a little bit, but how to keep those 1 or 2 players and then continue to build a minor league that's churning up, talent.
I think the most annoying thing about the whole thing is that, like, you can understand like a Tampa Bay Ray or Arizona Diamondbacks, like they've been around for 15, 20 years. I mean, you talk about the Pirates, they've been around for like a century. They have
they've got dedicated fans.
They have decades of worth of excellence, and then now the last 20 years, what are you doing?
Yeah, when we have an award named after one, right? Clemente.
Yeah.
So
it's embarrassing.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing.
It was after you guys left, you and Bonds and Bonilla. Now, Bonilla is interesting because without him, we don't have Albert Pujols. Most people don't realize that either. You know that?
Well, Albert would have been in the big leagues regardless.
You sure?
Absolutely. I mean,
he had a great spring. I'm going to tell you, I went to church with Albert for 11 years. He had a great spring. He told me that he called Didi when he was told he wasn't going to make the team, and he told her 1 more year, and if I don't make it next spring after having this great spring, because he was told he was going down. He was not staying up.
I understand that. I know Bobby Bonilla got hurt, and that's why he made the team. But
yeah,
some point
you do not get the numbers that Albert Pujols gets, and not have a career. Is my point. Bobby Bonilla may have got him to the big leagues a little bit quicker, but his destiny was to be one of the best right-hand hitters in the history of the game, regardless of Bobby Bonilla. That's what I want to say. Well,
no doubt about it. We just watched a 21-year career that was incredible, and it was a pleasure. I haven't really talked to him in the last 10 years, but it was a pleasure for 11 years getting to go to church and seeing him on occasion and getting to be a tag along for golf or whatnot. So. Yeah, he was always, what I can say, he was always classy. So, and the same class that he carried on the field is the same class that I saw him everywhere he went. So, all right. And actually, I think I shared one of my favorite stories was after we won the first World Series.
He came to church and acted like no big deal.
Yeah, next day he was with his kid, putting his kid in a little bumble thing, bouncy thing with me, and we were just talking like normal people.
Here, I got a question for our guest.
Yeah. Go ask your guest a question.
I got lots of questions for our guest.
Well, we have to bring him in more than once.
Yeah.
No, you won't.
Yeah. Drag you in here. What? So somebody just got hurt on the Dodgers yesterday. Did you see that?
I did.
Running the baseline. He was He was rounding second, halfway in between second and third, and he just one of his steps was weird, and it made his knee buckle, and it probably popped something in his knee.
No, I didn't see that.
But I was gonna tweet something the other day. What percentage increase or decrease do you think that players will get hurt running the base pass this year? Just because of the couple inches on either side of the bag. It's going to mess
I don't
up.
know.
I mean, you got to think these guys have been running the exact same way for 20 years of their life around the base pad. Now you're making their footpath, 6 inches different here and there.
It's 4.5 inches between first and second, and 4.5 inches between second
But my
and third.
point is, where you hit the bag is going to be different on your stride. Where you come off of second, where you come off, how you round first is going to be different. And it's just, I think my thinking is that there's going to be a humongous increase of injuries on the base paths this year.
Could
Well, that's a prediction.
Whether at first,
Well, that's a prediction. We'll have to wait and see.
I guess he's
I
asking
never
your
thought
thoughts.
of it, but the mere fact that he hurt his leg between first and second,
just running.
has nothing to do with him hitting the base, though.
Not the base, but his subsequent stride lengths and everything after touching a base, or even getting the first base when you're lunging a little bit. Now there's 2 inches. Like the back and the front are different.
Yeah,
Where your foot lands on the base is going to be different.
Well, they're already.
Maybe, I don't know. I'd probably have to go out there and physically do it to see the difference. Obviously, I can't sprint anymore, but I'd have
can't?
to just what?
You can't sprint anymore.
No,
Not with that new hip.
no,
No.
no. The days of running are over. So I'd have to go out and see and get a feel for it just by being out there. But you may be right. But we'll have to wait and
I don't
see.
know. Yeah, I just was gonna.
It's an interesting theory,
I was
but
gonna ask. I was gonna pull the Twitter sphere, and then the next day that guy got hurt just running.
Yeah,
Gavin Lux, he just blew out his
Gavin
knee.
Lux.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. That's
that could have happened going between home.
Well, he
first.
could've-
we
it
saw
could've
that with,
happened sitting down on the toilet. That's not my point. Is that
yeah. We saw it with Adam Wainwright, right? When he walked up to the base and he was out the rest of the season on the knee injury.
I don't remember.
That was about
I don't know.
maybe 4 years ago. Adam Wainwright went up to bat, and he was into batting, getting ready to be into bat, getting ready to walk up to bat, and he just kind of buckled.
Yeah. Well,
And everybody's like, "What just happened?"
Yeah,
and
I'm
he
not
wound up
saying-
he wound up being out. He had to wear like a leg cast and had some kind of
Yeah. I'm not
freak
saying
leg
that the
injury that was
bases
just
did
weird.
hurt that. I'm just saying I would imagine that there is going to be an increase, whether it's all at first base, like weird ankle injuries. I just think that that's just what I think.
I don't know. Did they change the surface of the base? Is it softer, harder?
No, I think it's the same. Same.
My biggest complaint about the bases was they were slippery.
Yeah.
That was the surface itself was too firm, and
I think they might have added little
Pad.
nubs, little, for
'cause
lack of a better word, nipple.
You probably slipped on the base before you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's not uncommon even to slip on the old bases. So
Especially
The
in
only-
LA, the dew. And,
yeah, the only way you I think would decrease is to change the surface of the base itself. It was a very hard plastic. It wasn't even like leather. I guess it was leather, but when your spike hit that base, I guess there's a correlation between having it too soft and too hard. They seemed to me when they were building them on the side of being too hard, because you'd see a lot of guys just slide right off.
Yeah,
the
your
base.
spike never got caught. Maybe that's better
probably,
than.
yeah, I think it is probably better.
It's probably better than
So,
getting your
yeah,
spike.
yeah, because if you plant your foot and your body's trying to go to second base and your foot's facing right field, you're going to blow your knee out. So
Wow.
that's probably why they did it.
Yeah.
That was just a question I thought.
No, hey, I'm enjoying this. This is good. We'll eventually get to the Cardinals a little bit. So, but I enjoy. We always
You want to
like.
get to the Cardinals?
Yeah, let's get some Cardinals. How about that? Let's bring them up. We'll talk a little bit about them.
Do a quick.
We have a lot of people want to know, what our thoughts are. I told them we would do a spring preview of them, anyways, because
Are we gonna do a full overview, or are we just gonna?
think we'll just go through-
top
the whole
picture.
roster.
Let's do top pick. Maybe
I don't know. I mean, we can pick some of the controversial players. We can do whatever you want. We can. I've got them all on here, so you just tell me who you want to go with. I'll tell you what. Here's a good one to start with. How about Giovanni? Okay, what do you guys think of him? And the reason why I'm asking, why do you think of him? Obviously, he was our 8th inning guy last year, right? So for the Cardinals, my thing is with him is he had the longest pause in all of baseball between pitches, and with the pitch clock, how's it going to mess with a guy like that this year?
Well, he won't have a pause anymore.
Yeah. They're already saying though that it's actually affecting hitters more than pitchers. So.
Here's the thing you got to remember about spring training is there's no way to say, in April, May, June, July, or August this is what we're going to see based on spring training. Spring training is a totally separate.
Right. It's just getting people back in the swing of things, getting their timing down.
It's a matter of you got basically, I would say, 25 teams know what at least 23 or 24 of their players are going to be on the team or not. It really comes down to one or two guys, maybe a pitcher, but you may have 10 teams, and we were talking about Pirates. They're a team that's going to look at their whole roster in spring training, and they don't know who half the guys on the team are going to be.
Right.
Or even who they are.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of learning who they are, how they play. But basically, spring training, it's just a matter of deciding just a few players and making sure that your regulars are just ready to play.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing that people don't understand is the hardest job this year in spring training is really getting the players who are not with you in spring training when they come back from the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, to get their timing in and their camaraderie.
Just to make sure that they're ready to play during the regular season, because you're not going to get as much work in the World Baseball Classic as you are in spring training.
Yeah.
So therefore, you just got to make sure that they're in a position where when the season starts, they don't get hurt.
Gotcha.
That's the number one thing, is to make sure that they don't get hurt. And one of the great things about Jim Leland, and I don't know your experience, Scott, with major league managers, is they would always ask me, "Are you ready physically to play?" And if I had a tweak or whatever, you say, "Okay, it might be a week away or 2 weeks away. Let's take care of this to make sure that you're ready for spring training." That's an asset that a lot of managers aren't going to have this year. So that's going to be their number one concern, to make sure their regulars are ready to play.
Yeah. On top of not taking throws from your regular shortstop, not taking throws from your catcher, like when shortstops throw the ball from second base, some guys are here, some guys are here, and like D. Gordon was like below his hip, so you're missing 30 days of.
And then you got Eckstein, who kind of always did the hop, and Albert would have to stretch
just
out.
those little things that
Make a difference.
Yeah, in April you're gonna be like, what?
Yeah,
So
well,
you know how to turn a double play?
But it kinda
the price of the quality of play early on in the first couple of weeks is not what you expected. You're not going to see. I don't think you're going to see the high quality of play that you're going to see, which is sort of normal anyways. But I think you're going to see at a higher level that you normally would see in May, June, or July.
Okay.
So, something to pay attention to.
Well, I guess my question though was with Giovanni, being that he took so long between pitches, you think that this year is going to really affect him? Is he going to be the eighth inning guy because of that, or do
we had this discussion about like the shift being gone. Like I think there's going to be guys that hit 330 this year that you're going to go, what?
Yeah,
330, and I think it's the same thing with these pitchers. Like I'm thinking like a Pedro Baez when he was on our team that took 14 minutes in between pitches, But that's how he pitched, and that's how he locked in, and and if you make that guy pitch fast, he might have a 42 ERA.
Okay.
I just think there's so many variables.
I would think of all the pitchers on the roster, Giovanni might have the biggest issue because how much time he did take between. So,
yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking of him going into spring training, kind of thinking.
Even in spring training here,
he's got to figure that part out this spring training. That's something where he's going to have to work on that timing, trying to get those pitches out a little bit quicker in that thought process, different than he's been programmed the last several years to do. Different mindset, I guess. It's not that he can't do it.
Well, no, the thing is that's his mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like if he's an athlete and that's how he goes out and performs as an athlete, and you're going to try to make him do the opposite.
No, he's got to learn to reprogram, and that's the biggest thing about big leagues is the guys that stick around are making adjustments to stick around. The guys that aren't smart enough to make adjustments don't stick around.
Right.
And so for him, if he wants to pitch this year, he better darn learn how to get the baseball and throw it again. And spring training again, because a lot of the average fan, it sounds like you, do not understand. Spring training does not have the same physical demand that it does during the regular season. You don't have the same adrenaline. You don't have the same importance. When you look at all those baseball cards you get, are there any numbers in spring training in the back of it?
No.
So players don't really care, is my point.
Yeah.
I mean, they do care, obviously, but they're getting themselves physically and mentally ready to start the season.
Right.
And for Giovanni, him to get ready for the season in spring training is not going to be the same. When he's in the game in the eighth inning this year, and he's used to pitching a certain way at the big league level, and the game and the pitches don't count in spring training, all of a sudden they count in the 8th inning, the bases loaded. We're going to see how he reacts then. It's really not going to be spring training.
Yeah, it won't be. Okay.
Yeah,
Fair
so
enough.
I think the point is, even if he does figure out how to get under the pitch clock in spring training, that's not going to be the same.
Right. I get what he was saying because
People
I
are-
get that spring training is much more relaxed and more just to get yourself kind of rocking and rolling and kind of get some timing down and things like that.
But your average fan goes, "Oh, this guy hit 400 spring training." Well,
Oh no, I've never cared about that. That doesn't matter. You can hit 10 home runs in spring training. It doesn't mean you hit any in regular
people
season.
were panicking last year. The Tommy Evans hit like 150 in spring training. I'm like, would you just relax? It's spring training, dude. The guy can hit. He's gonna hit.
I didn't even know that, but I didn't care. I really don't pay. My thing is are they working on, what are they working on? Usually they kind of tell you if you listen to the players, they'll be like, hey, I'm kind of trying to work on this, or I'm working on that, and I'll kind of pay attention to that.
So who else you got?
Well, I mean, who else do you guys want to talk about? We can talk about whoever you want. There's lots of them. We got the second base battle. You got Nolan Gorman. Let me throw him up there. We can talk about Gorman. You guys like him?
He's strong. He's very strong.
Well, he's strong. I mean, but is he your second baseman or is it Donovan? Brendan Donovan's your other guy. I'll throw him up there. We got two strong guys who are.
I love Gorman personally. I know he's not the best second baseman. His arm is average, but the few at bats I've seen this spring training, he's already made a change in the way he sets up before the pitch comes. So
Yeah.
the fact that he's 22 and he looks different than last year, and even though he's 22, he still had a decent year last year. I think the expectations are higher. They should be higher because of his talent. But I've already seen him make an adjustment in the way he sets up. He's taller, which I like. I like tall hitters.
Yeah.
And when you're taller, you're able to rotate faster. I thought he was a little locked up with his hips last year because he was so wide and so squatty. He seems to be a little taller, and I think he's going to have a tremendous year. So
I think so. I think he'll build on next year. I agreed. I thought last year wasn't a bad year. I thought it was a good start. You actually brought this up, and it got me thinking after our last broadcast, but you were talking about Mike Trout, how he had kind of just his first year was just okay, and I went back and looked.
Bad.
Well, I wouldn't have said bad, but it wasn't obviously Mike Trout level, And but I went back and looked at that after you said that because I had not realized that. I followed him, but I wasn't a huge Mike Trout fan at that point.
That's not out of the ordinary. Like George Brett, what did George Brett hit? Like 199 his first year.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with Gorman. Like he's got that kind of talent, and this is a guy who can build off of that. Do you think he's the second baseman, or is he either DH though? Because either him or Donovan is going to be your second baseman, right? Because Edmonds going to be your shortstop.
well, the only way Evans is not your shortstop if they put Paul DeYoung at short, and the only way Paul DeYoung's going to play short is he better hit immediately in spring training. Now, here's one guy that breaks the rules of spring training. He's got to hit. If he doesn't hit in spring training, I'm sorry. Based on the last 3 years, I don't think he can be on the team.
By the way, you were not big on him, but I did go back and look at him. He had more than one good year, so he actually had.
Based on his recent history.
Yeah, but
not on his
I
past
understand.
history.
Yeah, but what about the years that he had the total at bats?
Well, so his first year he has 25 home runs.
How many at-bats?
Hold on. Well, I'll tell you that in just a second. Second year 19, year 30. Let me look at at-bats. At-bats 417, 436, 583.
Okay.
So 400 to 500 at-bats. He hits in those at-bats. He hits 25 homers, 19 homers, 300, and his average was basically 285 his first year, and after that it was 250. I mean, 241, 250 even. And then, as you said, the last 3 years. Now, 2 of the last 3 years he's been hurt, though. So, in all fairness about that, too. I'm not saying I'm not a Paulie DeYoung fan or not fan.
He went hurt last year. He just stunk.
Yeah, well, he went down to the minors and clubbed, and he came up and couldn't club again. He's kind of an enigma to me.
AAA is not.
Sure, I know it's not the same. We've seen that time and time again, right? Yeah. So, I agree with that 100%. But do you guys think?
Here's my point about minor leagues versus big leagues. There are some players that like a lot of eyeballs on them. They like 100,000 eyeballs. Some guys don't like, but 1,000 eyeballs.
Yeah.
My point is, some players respond to when there's 50,000 people in the stands, and some players don't. Where Paul DeJong is, I don't know, but I've seen players get in front of big crowds and just throw up all over themselves, and some guys go.
Yeah, but it's weird because he did it. I mean, he did it for a couple
He
of
did
years.
He had 3 good years. He had 3 good years,
But
first
this-
3 years.
But when you look up on the scoreboard and you're looking at a 159
Yeah,
batting
that's
average, that's a hard thing for a guy.
Then you start
Regardless of who you are.
Yeah, I
You
actually
can have all the confidence in the world, but that thing says 159, and everybody's looking at you. It's not a good feeling.
Oh, I get that. I also think that the Cardinals' plan for him
How do
was
you get that? Did you ever hit 159 in the big leagues?
no,
Oh, okay. I
no,
was just curious.
no. But I get that that having those eyeballs and not doing so well can definitely put pressure on you. Not
It's
supposed to get-
It's my point.
Yeah.
If it says 359 and he goes over 4, that's all right. Next day, let's go get him.
Yeah.
But every at bat is my point. Every at bat is so magnified. I've been there. I my first year in Pittsburgh, I struck out 50 times in April.
Wow.
I was awful. And I felt terrible. But the next 5 months,
You made it up.
turned the page, and I didn't care what the numbers said anymore. And so my point is, these guys aren't robots. They do care what the numbers say, and then what that number says on the scoreboard a lot of times has a lot to do with the way you play.
So do you think Paul can turn it around? What do you guys think? I
I
mean,
don't, but I hope I'm wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, I would not.
Yeah.
I would,
Chris
I would-
Carpenter did it. I mean, guys can do it.
well, and Chris Carpenter is another one. See, both of those guys are interesting to me because they both were not power hitters. They were actually good hitters when they came up, but they had pop. And the Cardinals were so desperate for power because we didn't have Arenado, we didn't have Goldie, we had nobody. We had nobody with pop, and so they were so desperate to find somebody to be in that 3 and 4 slot that they kind of put those guys in there, and neither one of those guys should have ever really been there. That was not their position for hitting, and so they kind of messed with their swing, trying to get them all to be more, go for the power, hit more home runs. I think because they were moving those slots.
Well, that wasn't just him. That was everybody in baseball for about 3 or 4 years.
Well, but I'm saying in particular, the Cardinals had no power, and so you take the guy that hits 20 home runs, and you're like, I mean, that's double everybody else on the team. I mean, Molina hits 12. This guy hit, 13. There was we had about 3 or 4 years after Albert left that we had a little power, and then Albert, he's in L.A. and Beltran moved on,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, who was there? We traded for Ozuna. We thought he was going to be that guy, and he came in and was hurt and did. He had 21, and the guy hit 40 a year before. I'll go back and say they didn't have Matt Carpenter became the guy who they're trying to deal with, and they kept moving. And then the other thing, they couldn't figure out a position for the guy. He was first, he was second, he was third. The only thing he didn't play was short, and that was when he was good. This is when he could hit. They just kept moving him around. Every spring training he had to come with a different club. I felt like he was Skip Schumacher, but except I'm like, well, this guy's supposed to be one of your franchise stars now, and you're not treating him like that. And
I think he felt that.
and then you had DeJong kind of come up, and he has that one good year. That first year he hits 21 home runs and
I don't think
100 bats, and they
think-
thought he was a power hitter.
I think we can move on from Paul. I don't think
Yeah.
he's going to hit.
Okay.
I don't think he was what they were thinking he was when they signed him.
Well,
Or
that
it was
goes
a
back.
confusing sign when they signed him.
Yeah, I go back and say I just thought it was weird where they put him. I definitely thought it was weird they signed him so early. I always thought that was weird about the Cardinals too. When you already got a couple more years, let these guys play and develop. Walt Jocketty, back when I was involved in Christian Family Day, once told me. I asked him, how do you guys determine who you're trading on? He said, I will trade a prospect unless I know that prospect is a 100% like a Wainwright. He was high on Wainwright. He goes, I expect 2 years. 2 years out of them, and then I think that they're the real deal. So that's what Walt told me one time. So that was, that's why he was always easy to trading in the prospects a little bit. So, all right, moving on. Andy, who else do you want to talk about? You got anybody you're thinking of on the team?
New catcher. Let's talk about the new catcher.
Oh, Contreras?
Yeah.
Okay. I like
Guys
Contreras.
him. I think guys like him on the team. Gonna
Yeah.
be good.
So
A little more offense.
I think what's good about Contreras this year is that the game shifted. This is actually going to play to him a little bit because I think pitching is just going to be funky a little bit this year. We're going to see an adjustment, and Yachty being the defensive guy that he was, Contreras is not bad, but he's not Yachty. Okay,
Yeah, no.
he's a better bat the past few years. We're going to see the offense difference from Contreras. He's going to hit. He's going to hit like a young Yachty. But I think as far as the little things that we saw Yachty do, I mean, one of the things about Yachty is he controlled the game a lot, right? He would take those pauses. We can't do that now. You can't tell a pitcher to take a few extra seconds between pitches. So that's why I said I think it's going to be. I think it's probably a good transition period along with the pitching.
Yeah,
So.
imagine Yachty trying to do Yachty stuff this year.
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought, man, he went out on a good year. This would be a really weird year for him to be catching, I think, a little more than normal because that's one of his things. He loves to control those pitchers, and he did a lot of it by, keep those.
Step off.
Yeah. Take a second, take a breath, or whatever. Like he was big on those pauses. So, Andy?
Well, Yachty, to me, he controlled the game in a way that was very unique. He could say something, he could verbally say something, he could do visual communication to the pitching staff in a way that I actually had never seen before. I mean, his mere presence and all his experience all wrapped up was right on during the game, and that doesn't just happen in the game. Yachty's baseball intelligence is extremely high, and the way he would communicate to pitchers when they weren't on the field always was taking place. He was always in a pitcher's locker. He was always in the bullpen. He was always trying to figure out you or him or him. He was always trying to figure out how to get the most out of every pitcher. And so when he understood that a guy like Giovanni needed more time. So he was very patient behind the plate. And for Contreras this year, I think overall, as far as Contreras goes, you're not going to lose that much defensively because Yachty was actually not very good towards the end of his career as far as catching.
That's
and
true.
Receiving.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a wash. But offensively, Yachty's been horrible for the last couple of years.
Agreed. I thought
absolutely horrible. And the worst thing that Yachty could ever do is hit a single.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing he could ever do is hit a
Walk up
single.
the
So
bases.
the fact that Contreras can run and the fact that he has more power than Yachty, I think the overall wins above replacement is going to be really good this year for the catching position for the Cardinals. It's no more complicated than that.
Yeah, I agree.
Next.
All right, next. We got an outfield competition. Let's talk about that a little bit because we got a lot of guys vying for spots. Basically, we've got three guys who've all had one good year, and none of them are repeated. We've got O'Neill.
Wait, why are you eating the mic?
I'm not.
Okay.
I was just scratching my nose on it.
Well, they can hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the
You're
beauty
trying
of
to
a
get more
podcast.
personal with our listeners.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
Put your nose into it.
if you've been hearing little scratches our whole episode, it's because my dad keeps scratching his beard with the mic.
So no, what I was going to say is you got three guys. None of them have had more than one good year. So Dylan Carlson comes up, does okay. I had a good year, a good solid year, but not as I don't think
What,
as high
last
as
year?
No, year before.
Oh, okay.
Last year it was not a good year.
No.
Okay, O'Neill had a okay half year, comes up, has a great year, and then has another bad year or
Say
year where
this,
he's hurt.
Neil gets 550 at bats. He will lead the team in home runs and potential RBIs.
Okay, and then we got the other side. You got Lars Nootbaar, who last year had a decent year. And I mean, he's a solid right fielder. But okay, now right behind him, Alec Burleson, done everything at the AAA, and
No.
hold on, and then we got Jordan Walker.
You asked my opinion.
I know.
I said no.
You don't think he's going to make it at all?
No, Burleson's not an everyday outfielder.
Okay.
I mean, you got a kid 20 years old who's one of the most talented players in all of baseball.
Well, I was going to.
If Burleson's on a team and Walker's not, then I don't understand baseball.
Well,
I'll just say that. That's all I'm going to say. It's no more complicated. Walker is Albert Pujols in spring training this year that Albert Pujols was before he made the team.
yeah,
I'm not saying Walker's going to have the same career. I'm not even saying that. But when you got talent like that and you sit in the minor leagues when he could be doing his thing at the big league level, makes no sense to me. He's a man among boys in minor leagues. Put him where he belongs, among men.
Man, you're speaking my language. I want Walker. I definitely think that's why I was kind of bringing him up last because I didn't want to throw the thunder up front. But I agree. Walker is, so does he replace Lars? Is Lars your fourth
He's
guy?
not replacing anybody.
I mean,
there's no. Here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. What starting outfielder do we have in the outfield right now?
That was my question. We
don't have one.
Yeah.
So every position is up for grabs.
Correct.
So therefore, give it to the kid. He's going to play in the big leagues anyways.
Yeah.
So why wait?
Yeah. Let Walker play. Yeah. Well,
It's not a matter of money for the Cardinals. And there's another thing that drives me nuts about the finances of the game. What's the difference if he comes up in May and what are you going to save, $1 million in arbitration, $2 million maybe?
Yeah, they care about that.
But if he's on the team, he sells more jerseys and you get more wins. You get more people to come to the ballpark. The overall package is if Walker plays and he succeeds, you're going to be ahead financially, not behind.
Andy, and I would say on any given year, what you just said is right. I will say right now, we have a unique thing. We haven't even talked about this, but I was reading an article that, that Bally Sports is declaring bankruptcy right now, right?
I do.
Okay. All the teams that are affected by that did not spend a whole lot of money this year. They were actually, the Cardinals were like one of the bigger spenders. You look at like Milwaukee. They just had that Corbin thing. It seems like a lot, if you look at the teams that were affected, most of those teams seem to be a little more cautious this year about money than they were in past years. Just saying that I'm not saying that is the number one thing, but I think that plays definitely in the back of their mind. I think that always was a thought.
Well, I tell you what, if you're basing this kid's future on Bally Sports app, then I think you're in the wrong business.
It's not even. Yes, it's about money, but the money attached to the longevity of your control of him.
Yeah.
So if you bring him up in May, and then they maybe not make the playoffs, you have a whole nother year before you have to arbitrate him.
Okay. So if
you get
he's
him.
as good as he's.
So it might not be financially anything now, but financially you're getting a couple free months on the back end because you don't have to.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But if that's your concern, then give him a DeYoung contract.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
his upside is way bigger than DeYoung's ever was.
100
That's my
100
point.
million %.
So
yeah.
Give him $60 million, and you gave DeYoung 27 5 years ago, whatever it was.
They might be concerned. He's 20, and they might be concerned that they don't want to rush him and ruin his fragile mind.
I don't know about fragile mind. He seems like he's
No,
he's
but,
a solid kid.
I
ask
was
you a question.
24, and I when I got to the big leagues, I was like, oh my gosh! And I grew up in the big leagues, and you still walk up, and so like a 20-year walking up and then immediately failing, that might have a greater impact.
It could, but this kid's also been in the limelight since he's been 17 years old.
Yeah.
So this is not new for him.
No, he just clubs.
That's a good point.
The lights have been shining on this kid, and because he's the number one prospect in the Cardinal organization, and because he's been like the top 5 prospect in all of baseball for the last 3 years, he has performed through all that.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a different world today than it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago. It just is. I mean, with all the podcasts and all the websites and all the you can't. This kid knows he's out there. He knows.
I'd imagine, social media, everything.
Every night he knows he has to perform. So what's the difference if he starts in April? I think he's ready to perform because he knows everybody's looking at him.
Andy, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the Walker show. Trust me.
I agree. I think you should.
Can you imagine
I'm
him?
just giving you other reasons why.
And you're right about that. You're absolutely right.
Can you think about a lineup that would have, potentially Goldschmidt, Arenado, Walker, and O'Neill, and if O'Neill's healthy and in clubbing like you're saying with 400 at bats, what that could look like? That could be one of the most dangerous batting.
What's the team ERA though?
What's that
for pitching?
Well, that is their flaw. That's going to be. Look, let's get into that real quick because I want to bring up this guy because he chaps my hiney. But the Cardinals apparently are.
See, that's called cussing. Right
Yeah.
there.
well, he hurts my hiney, but
That's cold cussing right there. Come on.
you say he's a pain in my ass.
He chaps my
He's a pain
hiney.
in the ass.
Isn't an ass a donkey?
Yeah.
well,
he's
that's
a pain
a-
in the donkey.
There you go. He's
He's a
a
cold cuss really very.
so Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty, this whole season is hinging on a guy who has not been healthy and pitching the last 3 years. If Jack Flaherty does not pitch well this year, this team, in my opinion, because they're going to play tougher competition. We've already talked about this. You haven't been a part of this conversation. We've been talking. The Cardinals going to play tougher competition. They're not going to beat up on the Reds 3 times this year and the Pirates 3 times. They're playing a lot more American League teams. The competition's going to go up. National League division, the National League Central could be won with an 80-game winner potentially.
I'm worried about Pirates and Reds. The other good teams are going to beat them up instead of the Cardinals, so it doesn't matter. They're still going to lose potentially.
Yeah, but
games.
they're not going to have those wins. So it's potential that the National League Central could be won this year with a team that wins only 80 wins, in my opinion.
80?
If you think an 88 or 89 win season could win,
You're telling me that someone from the Central Division is going to get to the postseason
potentially
with a less than 500 record.
Potentially with an 80-game win season.
Is,
think about it.
That's a
do you
bold
think?
statement.
Well, I'm just saying.
Are you talking about playoffs or just?
I'm just saying. Look at this.
What he just said. Let's keep him accountable. What he said.
No, what I'm saying is how many win? How many?
Was it wild card
He
though?
just said that there's going to be a team potentially from the
He's
Central
told- I've
Division
heard- That's not the first
with
time.
less than 500 record.
I'm going to say here's.
If that happens, it'll be the first time in the history of baseball.
I know, but
If that's the case, then baseball's really screwed up.
What do we do if his prediction comes true though?
We pat him on the back. We pat him on the back. That's all.
No
prediction.
But let me explain.
Hopefully he stays humble.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. One of the beautiful things about having an opinion or stupid prediction is it might come true, and then you look smart. So nobody's going to remember you made the stupid prediction.
Well, I've been saying that it could be a low 80s winner, 80 win.
Now you're changing your mind.
My hold on here, but my point, my point of that whole conversation is the additional competition of American League teams to the National League Central. Teams like the Cardinals, how many?
I understand your premise.
Yeah, how many extra wins did the Cardinals get against playing the Pirates or the Reds or the Cubs in the past few years?
I bet it's a 10-game swing. I
Yeah.
bet it's a 5 wins instead of 5 losses.
So if 91 wins was enough to clinch or be in the playoffs in past years, okay, which it has been a few times, right? What's 10 wins off of that? 81. Oh, 81-game winner just went to the playoffs. That's my point.
Yeah,
Potentially,
I
the National
only
League.
thought that wasn't crazy just because it's the first time that they'll be playing that many more percentage of games against an American League.
That was my point. Now we do have the DH, but the other part is have the National League caught up on the DH like the American League. The American League has had the DH. The National Leagues are trying to figure it out a little bit. We've had it for 2 years.
Not anymore. They're not catching up anymore as far as the DH goes.
Okay.
No.
All right. This is great. I love this. so my goes back to Jack Flaherty. What are your thoughts of Jack Flaherty, Andy?
And keep in mind, Josh really, 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 really disapproves of his whole.
The whole package is what you're saying.
No, what I think is he's a talented young man, but he reminds me of. I'll give you another on the opposite end of this. Martinez was a talented young man, but every time he would go play a game with the Cardinals,
Martinez.
yeah, Carlos Martinez was a talented pitcher, but I can tell you why he never ever became what his talent lived up to, and the reason why is because after every game he would go to the casinos, and he didn't do anything bad that I know of. But I had a lot of friends in all these different towns. I used to get pictures from my family in Milwaukee, and he'd be at the.
But I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Because there's been plenty of pitchers that have gone to casinos and won 20 games 5 years in a row. Here's my point. It had nothing to do with
At 3 and 2 in the morning for
Absolutely.
4 or 5 hours, and then show up the next morning and perform. That's why he looked like this the whole time. If you look at his last 5 or 6 years, the guy looked like he was always tired.
Josh Beckett did that for 17 years.
You're missing the point.
That's amazing.
His personal lifestyle, which you don't know exactly what it is. You may hear rumors, so you got to be careful to begin with.
Well, these
And
weren't
I'm
rumors.
with
With
the
Carlos
guy.
Martinez, I had pictures sent to me. I literally at one point had 35 pictures of him at different casinos. Yeah.
I mean, you invite me and you won't let me talk.
I'll go ahead, Andy. Sorry, my bad.
So
Get on to me.
no, my point is his inability to be what he was supposed to be has nothing to do with anything except he had a very immature mind, and he didn't care about his professional pitching, and at a level in which everybody told him for years that he wasn't doing that. He had the mind. He had a mind of a child. So his lifestyle, did it contribute? I'm not going to disagree with it. It probably did, but his baseball intelligence was zero.
But that goes
He
kind
had
of.
zero baseball intelligence. You can have a guy go out every night. I played with guys who went out, starting pitchers who went out 3 times a week, and they get prepared because they were professionals to pitch that 5th night. Now, did I agree with their lifestyle? No. Did I think it was conducive to them being the best they could be? No. But they went out and won 20 games, 18 games, 16 games. So just because they went to the casino, you can't make that correlation.
Well, my point was it'd be the night before he pitched, and it just seemed like he was always, and he'd show up the next day and he would look like.
That it was every night before he pitched?
Well, it was.
It could have been occasionally, but you can't say that. Did you have his phone? I'm saying, as a fan, we have to be careful about judging someone's personal behavior being correlated to how they play in the field. I've been there. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So you got to be very careful when you cross that line.
Well, I wasn't trying to cross the line. I was just saying that we actually had an ongoing joke about Carlos Martinez for about 6 years because it was his last 4 or 5 years he would do this, and so I had friends all over the place that would send me pictures, and they'd be like, "Here he is again, pitching tomorrow, Carlos Martinez, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning at our."
Yeah, he just lacked. He just didn't.
But I think you're.
He just didn't care.
He lacked maturity, and he didn't really care about his particular professional level in which he should have been committed to. My point is, there's been guys who've gone out at 4 in the morning and gone out and pitched 2 hitters the next day.
Well, and
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think to your point though, I agree with you in the fact that you could do that. But my point of that, and I think we agree on this, is that he did not put his focus on the game like he could have. And that's my thing with Flaherty is that Flaherty always seems to be distracted with all this other external stuff, and he doesn't seem to be focused. I see these comments that he puts on social media. That's one of the things
I don't like his comments. It has nothing to do with him not being able to perform. He's been hurt. That's why he can't perform.
Right.
You may not like the fact that he wears some gay pride shirt, but that has nothing to do with him being able to pitch the next day.
Well, I think sometimes if that's where your focus is at, though, versus on the game.
So therefore, if you focus on Christ the night before, you're going to pitch good the next day. Is that what you're telling me?
What I'm
you're
saying,
making a correlation between his morality.
versa.
You're making a correlation between his morality and his professional
performance.
pitching. You can't do that.
Right.
You can't go there.
Well, I wasn't trying to say his morality. I was just saying his
That's what you're
preparation.
saying. You said his focus is on social issues. You can't go there.
Okay.
You can't.
Well, it seemed like his mind isn't on the game a lot of times.
How do you know that?
Well, it just seems like it. So.
But how do you know that?
Well, I don't.
Make that comment.
Well, okay, fair enough.
I think your
I
point.
don't like Jack Flaherty. That's got nothing to do with it. But I think you got to be. I get offended when people think a guy's morality has something to do with the professional what he does on the field. There's been scumbags who've been good on the field.
I mean, we saw that Darryl Strawberry, right?
Really?
He talks about it. He said he would talk about how he would do all sorts of stuff on the field,
Yeah, absolutely.
and he was still a great performer. Great performer. Doc
Did it
Gooden.
hurt his career? Yes. Did he care about playing? Yes, he did.
Oh, absolutely.
He cares.
Oh, I love that. I love Darryl. Yeah, he's a great guy. Was one of my heroes growing up. I used to imitate his bat swing.
I get upset when people make a correlation between someone's personal life and what they do on the field. It's a separate issue. Does it affect some people differently? Absolutely. It doesn't always.
Interesting.
You just need to be careful when you go there.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I liked that. Kind of just was over here.
No, that's good. This is good stuff.
You've seen it? Scott, you've seen it.
Oh yeah, and I think the point isn't even. It's not even the morality. It's not even the issue that Jack's talking about. It's not the issue that Darryl Strawberry did drugs. It's not that. It's that if it's noticeably a focus of an individual, like an interview. If you get interviewed and every single time your thoughts are, this is my focus, this is my focus, this is my focus. You start to question, well, like, how much of your focus being directed here is affecting
Your play on the field. Yeah, I think that's really where I was going. Like, even if it was a
I
Christian.
don't think it's a morality thing. I
You're
don't
right.
think it's a. Maybe I'm getting your point wrong, but if you,
You know what? Here's my point. You can make the argument. I've had Christian teammates. All they want to talk about is Jesus all the time, which is fine. But then you can have some heathen say, you know what? All that guy does is think about Jesus. He doesn't think about competing. And that's another thing that ticked me off was when Christians got labeled as not caring about competition on the field. So you can make an argument both ways. The guy's distracted by Jesus.
That's my point. Is I think if there were a player, I mean even
I think
even
that,
a little bit of Tim Tebow, and when Tebow was doing his whole thing, I had the thought of, man, I get it that you have a platform and you're doing that, but like you're a football player. Like
I agree. Like, focus on that, and
yes,
and that's kind of where I was going. I would even say that about a Christian. When you said that, I would say if a Christian was interviewed all the time, that's all they talked about, and they weren't. It didn't seem like they were focused on the game. I'd be like, dude, become an evangelist. Like maybe that's your calling.
I think it's your area of focus that is a concern for you.
Yeah.
But here you don't know when the guy takes the field where his focus is. You can't know that.
Well, fair enough.
You can't know that.
Well, fair enough. But
that's a good point.
But I guess my
Jack Flaherty's not thinking about gay pride when he's on the mound. I can guarantee you that. He's thinking about getting that guy out.
As far as you know.
So as far as
you know.
Well, he's throwing the ball 98 miles an hour. I don't think he's thinking about gay pride.
No, he's not.
No, but the argument about Jack Flaherty, and you kind of said it, he's been hurt the last 3 years. This year's his last year as a Cardinal at the moment. No, there's no contract. He's been very adamant about getting paid. That was one of the things that's been a turnoff to me too. It's just, I get that. I want players to get paid. I think there's value, but how he's gone about that at times over the last several years has seemed like a distraction to some point. And so my question is, I mean, if he does well this year, do the Cardinals sign him? And if he doesn't do good, then they miss the opportunity to trade him and get something for him.
You know,
he's an enigma.
Based on our last 10 minutes of conversation, I hope he wears a gay pride shirt and wins 25 games.
He could. He would do it too.
Because here's my point. I want the guy to be successful as a professional baseball player.
Yeah, and as a Cardinal, I do too.
Do I want him to have a different point of view about life? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want him to be successful on the field and off the field. My point is, again, can't make a correlation between someone who believes in gay pride and his performance on the field. Just got to be careful with that.
No, I agree. You've gave me a lot to chew on there. I'll definitely be chewing on that.
Okay.
So you've made a very, very valid point. That's what I love about our discussions. We talk about all the time is that we're podcast theologians, kind of working out our faith, kind of working out our stuff together. And I would never claim to be a know-it-all. I'm learning. I'm constantly learning. That's one of the things I was telling you earlier about one of the comments he made about you. He said one of the things that made my dad a good father is that my dad has always been mastering being a father. He's constantly learning, constantly becoming a better father. Wow. So, and
working at it.
That's right. But that's it really encouraged me a couple weeks ago when he said that. And you know, I think as believers, we always want to be growing as men. And I think what you're saying is we need to be careful how we judge people. And as a ball player, you're saying as you know where they are with their belief systems isn't who they are on the field, which. Fair enough. I mean, there's gay players that play great, right? I want every player for the Cardinal who plays for them to do well. Flaherty's just been such an enigma the last 3 or 4 years. It's frustrating as a fan. And now you got this year. My thing with the Cardinals, if he does great, then do they sign him? And if they do, is he going to get hurt again? Is this because that's their last 3 years, or do they let him go and then they got nothing for him?
About professional sports, when it comes to the body, past history usually tells you the future history. Mm-hmm. And when you look on the baseball card in the back of it, what it says on the back of the card is usually what's going to happen in the future. But at some point, it's going to start fading, and it has to do with the physical part. And so that's one of the things you have to decide as an organization. At what point is his body not going to give us the numbers what's on the back of his baseball card? And I think this is going to be the biggest year of Jack Flaherty's career because his ability to throw the baseball, it's all there. Okay, the inability to throw it is going to be based on how he feels. So that's really.
And part of my thought process, we were talking about a guy named O'Neill. Do you remember who we traded for O'Neill? Mm-mm. We traded a left-hander who pitched for Seattle. Mm-hmm. We got O'Neill for him, and you know why?
Wait, who's the lefty? I don't know who the lefty is. Paxton?
No, it was
wasn't Paxton.
Hispanic name. Hold on.
It started with a B.
Was it Gonzalez?
I can't remember.
I think it was Gonzalez.
Point being,
What's that?
We'll go with Gonzalez.
I think it was Gonzalez. I think he went on and did really well for about 3 years with them, and everybody kept going, when is O'Neill going to do something for us? Because he was up there winning 12, 14 games for them, and had a really good year. I think his first season for him, he went on fire. We thought he had talent, but he kept getting hurt, and then he came back and he pitched like.
Something about baseball trades. You can't always be right.
Well,
And that's the one thing that fans get crazy about.
No.
You're dealing with human beings. You're not like trading an IBM computer for a Dell computer. You know what you're getting with a Dell computer, and you know what you're getting with an IBM computer. When it comes to human beings, you can't always be right.
That's true.
Can't. And it's so easy to sit back and say, "Well, they shouldn't have made that trade. They couldn't have made." But you know what?
My point was, I thought that was one of the.
That's all part of the game.
Well, what you're saying is what a lot of my friends were saying, and what I told them, and this was my response to them. I thought it was one of the greatest trades they made. I had a lot of friends going, but he's up there pitching and winning, and I'm like, yeah, but they did not know that. He came back and he pitched the end of the last season. He did not do very well. He was out of options, so either he made the team, okay, and you didn't know what you're going to get, or you lost him.
Yeah.
And I said, but they packaged him up, and they got a guy who's a high talent, in O'Neill, and it looks like he's going to be a hitter, and he could want to be in value to the Cardinals.
We'll see.
And that's why I said with Flaherty, that's my thing with Flaherty. I really thought my opinion, I thought the Cardinals should have traded him this last year, not because of his off-field stuff, but because he had value.
Let me ask you a
still.
question. He had no value.
Okay.
I can tell you that unequivocally. There's no team that's going to take that arm history and take a chance on it and give up talent in the process. It's
Okay.
just not going to happen.
So it
you might
sounds like-
you might be able to get some fungos for him, but that's it.
It sounds like they're going to keep him if he
Yeah.
does well. So
Yeah,
like Hank
but
Williams,
their whole season is hinging on him. I mean, he's the top end, and if he doesn't pitch well,
that's a bad hinge to have as an organization.
That goes- I mean, that's-
Shoddy arm.
you've got him, and then who's after him? I mean, you got Michaelis.
Michaelis.
But there's a reason why Michaelis wasn't your starting pitcher going into playoffs last year. He had a great year last year, but he wasn't your starting pitcher going into the playoffs because he's not a shutdown pitcher. He's a guy who win you a lot of games throughout the season because he's a good pitcher, but he's not a playoff pitcher. He'll get you to playoffs. He ain't going to ride you to one. He's kind of like a Jeff Suppan. Jeff Suppan would win you games, but there's a reason why we didn't have him as our game 1 or 2 starter for the Cardinals.
Well, just be patient. It's the Cardinals have enough to win the division. It's at some
Yeah.
point during the season.
They have some talent in there, and that goes into.
If they're serious about winning the World Series this year, we'll know based on only one thing: they'll go out and get a good starting playoff pitcher.
Yeah,
That's what
well,
what we discussed about. You were talking about maybe some different moves. I said I think they go 3 or 4 months, see where they're at, and if they're like, yeah, we're good, let's get really good, then they'll make a move.
what?
Especially if they're 10 games up, you're going to see something happen.
Yeah, well, I'll say another thing. I think you're going to see too. I think a lot will also hinge, and I want to say this too about Jordan Montgomery. I mean, he's a young talent, came from the Yankees, did well in the Yankees organization, had a great year last year. I'm glad the Cardinals didn't sign him yet because I want to see how he does against the shift. I think left-handed hitters this year are going to struggle probably the most against the shift, and so I'd like to see how he handles that. But he could want to be in a stud form. He could want to be in the future too. I'm not against that.
Pitchers are going to struggle the most against the shift. Left-handed pitchers.
I think so. I could be wrong.
I think you might be getting that from me. I think that left-handed pitchers are going to have the biggest jump in their stats based on
Bad or good?
Bad. They won't have those people lined up along that line.
ERAs
from
are
the
going
shift.
to be a little bit higher.
Because they're more sinker ball type pitchers, generally speaking.
Generally speaking, lefties like to come pound you in hard and go soft away.
Right.
So you're either getting jammed on the left side or you're out in front on maybe you hit the barrel, but it's in that hole. Mm-hmm. Now that hole's bigger.
Sure.
Now you're going to have more changeups.
Well,
go
I
through the
don't know
hole.
if you guys have watched any spring training games yet, but I've already seen more 4 or 5 hoppers get to the outfield
That's why
in the last couple of games than I probably saw in a week.
You know what I thought? You know his prediction about 81 and 81 being the playoff? My crazy prediction this year is that somebody might approach 400. Just based on the fact that like it's
Bases are
all
bigger
even,
and all that. Yeah.
Just the speed of the game, things like I
Well-
think people are going to get into a rhythm, and that rhythm's going to stick a little bit longer just because of the pace of the game, the pace of
I like hitting quickly.
yeah. I think that
And I
that
like
goes
I
away.
like pitchers who work quickly too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think there's going to be a perfect combination of a player that
The less I thought time to think about it, the better I hit.
100%. I think that
Yeah, it's just they just want to do it, right? It's just natural.
The top 10 guys that are batting average every year that might hit 320 like a Goldschmidt, I would not be surprised if randomly a guy's at 375
Well,
in June.
What did we say?
The
That
problem, part of the problem, though, Scott, is the contact rate is not what it used to be. But having said that,
People are going to start trying to make more contact. Yes.
so therefore your premise might be right.
Yeah.
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 Well,
How
Instead
do you
of
think about that?
Instead of like a 2-2 power hitter, like I still got a chance to maybe drive this ball. They're like, I'm 2-2. Wow, there's a little hole shorten up. Let me just put this in play now.
I got a chance by putting it in play.
Yes.
Versus trying to hit it over the fence.
Right.
Good premise. I like it. Is there anything else we can talk besides baseball?
we can talk whatever you want.
It's up to you. It's
We can
your
wrap
show.
it up. Yeah, no.
I want to talk about. I like talking about everything.
Me too. That's why we talk about
We
sports,
usually get
faith,
into
and culture.
politics a little bit.
A little bit?
Like
Yeah, here let's wrap up our little Cardinal section,
Yeah.
and we'll just kind of move into that. How about that? Do you have?
Whatever you want.
Yeah,
All right, so the Cardinals may be very good.
Yeah,
May win the division with 80 wins.
I think they'll be good this year. I don't think it'll be maybe. I think they'll be good. They've got power in the lineup.
To write down your predictions, seriously, before the season starts. Like 5 predictions. And yours is ridiculous, so start with your number 1.
I love it. I love that he's picking on me. I love it.
You write them down, and then
We'll check them off as they
announce
come.
them before the season starts, and then come back in September and see how you did.
I was going to
That'll
say,
make it interesting.
I did want to say one thing about the batting average. That's just something that's interesting. Before the shift became a big thing, there were over 50 baseball players with over 300 averages, and after the shift became like a big thing, then you saw those. You saw, I think last year, what was there, 7 or 8? I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely saw that come down. So with the shift going away alone,
1941, Ted Williams hit 406.
that's not crazy.
Do you realize that in 1941 there were 3 infielders on the right side of the baseball diamond?
Did I tell you how good he was?
The shift was already in play.
Yeah, I know.
That was the saying.
People have always shifted. Yeah.
Well, I
It's
mean,
always been. It's
yeah, it just became more of a trend. It kind of
they
cut
named
in.
it. They named it.
Yeah,
They named
and
it.
there were plenty of times when I looked out, facing a guy that the shortstop was on the right side of second base, and so I kept grinding out to him. And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm tired of doing that. I think I'll hit the ball over that way." And that's when I hit 300.
I think I would have hit
That's awesome.
No, I'm just saying it's.
340 in the big
I hate the
leagues without a
shift. I hate the shift. It's up. I think it's ridiculous. The fact that an infielder has to have his feet on the dirt, that's ridiculous. I think that the clock is ridiculous. I think the base being bigger is. I think everything that baseball has done in the last 5 years 10 years has absolutely been terrible for the game. It's really interesting that you could actually invent a rule that you can have competition stop without a pitch being thrown and the game is over. Think about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. We saw it the other day in spring training.
3-2. Okay, let's just make a scenario. 3-2, bases loaded, 7th game of the World Series, and the pitcher holds on to the ball too long.
Or the
That
hitter
happened
take
in
too long.
spring.
I'm just saying, think about this baseball season ending under that.
Yeah.
The fact that
Yeah.
the rule,
Game 7 World Series.
okay, the fact that the rule is even in play,
Possible.
that's
Yeah.
possible, tells you how stupid the rule is.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. What? Just make it a rule where decisive, safe out, end of game can't happen. Like if it's 3-2 in the 7th game of the World Series and that scenario comes up, just have a rule where it said the game can't end. Sorry, he didn't get under time, but then just
what
redo
do you
it.
do? Turn the clock off?
You just redo it because it can't end. You can't end a game on that stupid rule, and you can't end an at bat on that stupid rule, and you can't end a
The rule,
walk.
but here's my premise: if the rule is that ridiculous, why have the rule anyways? Baseball keeps adding rules. It's interesting. The NHL, I don't know how many years ago, eliminated the 2-line pass. Okay, they eliminated a rule, and what happened? The game exploded because the fans got to see talent because the game became wide open.
Right.
You eliminate a rule to make it better. You don't add rules to make it worse, and that's what baseball's done.
Yeah, I mean, they've got their purpose. What is the purpose of baseball? Well, you know what it is. They won a game in 2.5 to 3 hours, and they won a lot of offense.
Who cares?
Well, I'm saying, but I'm just telling you that's why all these rules are in place. We know what their end game is. They want a 3-hour product with lots of offense. That's what they want.
I know, but have you seen they've been posting the average length of game year by year?
Yeah.
It was like 2 hours to 2:15, and it peaked at 2:30 for like decades. Mm-hmm. And then in the late 90s, early 90s,
Baseball.
It just
Television came into play.
television, and it just went skyrocketed up to 3 hours.
So they want to bring it back down, but with the television.
So your solution to the problem isn't even
Doesn't
what
solve
is
it.
causing the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
What's causing the problem is commercials, all these things.
Yeah.
Pitching changes, but here's the philosophy of pitching changes is a lot to do with it. When I broke camp my first year, we had 10 guys in the bullpen. I mean, on the pitching staff, 10. So if Scott came in to pitch, or you came in to pitch, you were going to finish that inning, maybe go pitch the next inning. That's just what your job was. So the philosophy behind trying to shut down the other team with the pitching staff has changed.
Yeah.
You really want to speed up the game? Don't have 11 pitchers on your roster. No more. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the guy has to stay in the game and pitch.
Yeah, you see Bob Gibson's pitching 10, 11 innings like he used to do, 9 innings.
The bullpen. I'm not talking about the starting, but you can't control how many innings the starting pitchers are going. I'm saying the bullpen itself. Okay, you got 4 or 5 starters, whatever you want to do. Have 5 or 6 guys in the bullpen, and that's it. If you do that,
Yeah, now
you
they
can't
have
make pitching
now they
changes.
have
Would you
12, 13, depending on their bench.
Now you got bench players. And here's the thing: you just said
I was going to say,
that
would
the
you
reason why they made these rule changes, they want more offense, right?
Well, I mean, I'm
That's
just telling you
you
what they've said. That's what they
That's what
said.
you said, and that's what they said, right?
Yeah, that's what they said. I'm just
Okay,
repeating
so
what they said.
therefore, they want more offense, which means what? The length of time goes longer. So it doesn't make sense.
Well,
Net zero change.
Andy, I'm a purist like you. I would like that. One of my questions is, because you're talking about 10, 11 pitchers, would you also drop the pitching mound and go back to where it was when Bob Gibson pitched? Because, back
You
then,
would have to raise it. They lowered
yeah,
it.
raise it.
Yeah, they lowered it. You want it to raise it again?
I find it, well, I'm just asking, would you do that?
I would.
Because I'm just thinking, you with
I
Bob
lowered-
Gibson, when he was pitching, it wasn't just Bob Gibson. There was a lot of pitchers that would pitch 8, 9, 10 innings back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was more, you're talking about more of a purist spirit. When we changed that pitching mound, then that's when you started seeing a lot more of the bullpen popping in.
No, the reason why the mound was lowered, it had to do with the year that Bob Gibson was a 1.12. The American League batting title hit 301. They wanted more offense. That's why they lowered the mound. So you want the game to speed up? Raise it a foot. Now the game's going to get a lot shorter.
Yeah, it's just they didn't. Their solutions weren't
No.
solutions to.
Yeah, I mean, they've always kind of thought backwards. But that's a lot of sports, right? I mean, you see that a lot of
Not in
times.
the NHL. They figured out how to make the game better.
Well,
When they got rid of that 2-line pass and you started having speed up and down, and remember how didn't like watching hockey. The puck would go in the corner and they'd sit there and kick it around for a while and then face off.
Yeah, face off.
I mean, you look. I don't know what the stats are. I'm going to look it up one day. I would like to see the amount of face-offs in the average game last year in the NHL versus 1980.
oh yeah,
It's probably exponentially crazy.
yes, agreed.
I don't know.
So it sounds like the problem that MLB has is the changes, the extracurricular activities that aren't actually baseball.
Well, I think what you're saying is it kind of reminds you of our government, right? Trying to transition here, but I mean, every time they put more layers of rules in, it's not really helping a lot of times. It's helping maybe a very specific little group, but it's just more red tape, and the product doesn't get better per se.
Yeah.
So
I don't know about you. I think the more laws they make, the safer I feel.
I know that ain't true.
Well, but also it's the type of person. You think like a Jordan Walker walking up to the plate versus Hank, or like an old baseball player, like Ty Cobb. I bet you when Ty Cobb walked up to the plate, he grabbed his bat, he walked up to the plate, and he went like that. Now you got walk-up songs. You got guys winging around a little weight, dropping down, doing their little strut, fixing their batting gloves.
That's another thing. Batting gloves. You want to speed up the game? Eliminate batting gloves.
No batting gloves?
No batting gloves. You know why? You can't adjust them in between pitches.
That's what my point is.
Eliminate the batting gloves.
Just as time has gone
Eliminate rules. Don't add. If you eliminate rules, it actually speeds
No
up
kissing the
game.
bat.
I just think
I love that.
The player is the type of person that plays baseball is different.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
different. So everything takes a little bit longer now.
Yeah.
It's all-
Yeah.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
Well, but
Baseball's always been a reflection of our culture, and we're a very narcissistic culture. Therefore, players are more narcissistic. It's all about them.
that is very true. Very true. No argument there, Andy. No argument there, buddy.
Yeah.
So,
When you think of it like a team, like a guy from, when you think about you, Andy Van Slyke. What do you think? Pirates. When you think Mike Trout now, what do you think? Mike Trout.
actually, I think 85 World Series, but that's just me when I think about Andy.
Who won the 85 World Series?
Who won it? The Royals won it.
Yeah. You think of teams though, not like.
Yeah, I thought when I think of Andy Van Slyke, though, that is
When you think of Aaron Judge, do you think of the Yankees or Aaron Judge now?
That's what my point is. You say a name, you think of the guy. You don't think Aaron Judge Yankees. You think Aaron Judge, big, strong, huge.
Andy. Do you know that his hitting coach is in O'Fallon? We found that out a while back. I still would like to meet that guy.
Less government.
Less government. I agree with that. You know me.
Aaron
Take it away.
Judge's hitting coaches in O'Fallon.
O'Fallon, Missouri. Yeah, the Eli.
His whole life?
What's that?
His whole life, or just now?
Well, apparently who he contributes to this last season because
Last season. Okay.
I don't know how long he's had the guy. I can tell you that. So, do you know who Eli Marrero is?
I don't know the name.
Okay. His son is in the Red Sox organization. So he was a Cardinal. We traded. He was part of the trade for Wainwright.
Right.
Okay. And his son is in the Red Sox organization, fairly high up, and he comes into St. Louis to use the same hitting coach, and that's how I found out about it. So I get some friends who are going over there. They have the guy working with their
I
kids.
know one thing. If I worked with Aaron Judge and he had the season he had last year, I'd be bragging about myself, too.
Yeah.
What about the guy that hit 100 last year and went and saw him? We don't hear about him.
Only Aaron Judge went there.
So you know what I have
You
in
know,
my.
you know what the biggest secret of being a good coach is? Like a really good hitting coach?
Having good hitters.
Hanging around Tony Gwynn. When you're the Padres hitting coach, put your arm around Tony Gwynn, you're looking pretty good.
Tony Gwynn, man. That guy.
That's all I'm saying. It's like, whatever. Next subject.
No, it's good.
No, I'm just saying, it's just, there's no secret to being a hitting coach.
So you want to hear something funny? I need to show. I actually brought it because I was going to show you, and I think it's in my bag. I've got a ticket stub from 1993. Okay, signed by a guy who has a record for the Mets. Okay, and his record is the most consecutive losses in the past 50 years. You have to go back to like the 30s and 40s to find consecutive losses like this. He lost 27 games in a row.
That's a lot.
Anthony Young.
Yeah.
Young.
Kept going
Right-handed
out there,
pitcher.
though.
So I got his. He was.
Remember that guy?
Yeah, I went down and got his autograph. I was like, everybody always wants a winner. I want to get a loser. I just felt like getting it. I thought it was kind of a cool thing to get a.
He shouldn't have been at those casinos the night before he pitched. He might have been better.
Maybe.
Hey, one year I saw you had 199 hits.
Oh yeah, I had actually 3 games rained out that year too.
Yeah. Never made them up?
They didn't count the stats back then.
Oh, you know what's interesting?
That ticked me off. I had like 100. I had like 207 hits that year or something.
You want to hear
And
something?
I got 8 of them rained out.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah, it was like crazy.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, I went, dang it.
I don't know. I was looking at
And
your
then,
stuff
like,
the other day.
then I forget what year it was. There was a year when they started counting every at bat, regardless if you got rained out or not. Because a lot of those, I had a couple home runs. I remember I had a 2-run game in Cincinnati before the 5th inning. We got rained out, and they didn't count the stats. And I was like,
Well, so you had some after the 5th inning? Or no, they were all before the 5th inning.
they were all before the 5th
I
inning.
think that's still a rule.
No, it's not. They count
They
They
count
count your stats, individual stats now.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I'm trying to find it, but there was a season. Yeah, I think it was 2008 that Albert hit 41 home runs, but 3 of the games got rained out in the first 2 innings, and he hit them as leadoffs. So he only hit 37 that season, and it was he would have hit over.
I forgot
40.
what year they changed it, but now they count if you hit a home run that get rained out, they count it.
Yeah, they didn't back then. He had a couple seasons where he it says like 35, 37, and he had the homers then, but they were. I remember the opening day game. He hit one in the first inning, and it was rained out by the 3rd inning, and they played it the next day.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know they changed that. What do you want to talk about now?
Oh, I don't care.
What do you?
What's going on in the world?
There's all. Well, we
There's always something going on.
we could start with something that we were going to talk about last week, and then we never got
I
to.
don't know what you guys talk about.
How about Project Veritas? Have you pay attention to that whole thing? James O'Keefe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Yeah.
He did you see that?
The problem with him, he doesn't get enough. He doesn't get enough awareness of what's he really doing. I mean, the only people that really cover it are Fox News and an occasional website, but I wish he was just out there more because he does expose a lot of creepy stuff.
Well,
Really,
that
a
is
lot of
true,
creepy
but
stuff.
did you hear what happened last week? Project Veritas and him are separate.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big deal. I mean, he was Project Veritas. I was like, how do you start a company, have the board kick you off, and they expect it to be something when you have been the face and the thrust behind it? Very
see.
weird.
I don't think Project Veritas is going to last very long. I think all of the people that follow Project Veritas follow James O'Keefe.
Well, you've already seen that with this Twitter and all that. His Twitter's going through the roof. Veritas, everybody's left it.
Yeah.
So
I always wondered, and maybe you know this, but how do they legally get those videos? How do they not get in jail? Because you have to have permission to record someone.
no,
Certain states you don't.
Oh, okay.
certain states. Well, and
California you don't.
in the public, if you look where they're at restaurants. They're not catching them in their residence.
Right.
So it's a public. So anytime you take them, that's how they do. They set it up. Usually it's set up as dates. So like the latest one was a guy acting like he was gay and went with that guy
Guy
from
in the cafe, the
guy that freaked out.
The freaked out.
Yeah. You're not leaving. You're not leaving.
yeah,
That one was crazy.
exactly. So
He got
caught.
Got caught revealing truth.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, truth.
it's kind of weird how Project. I was thinking about that. I agree. Project Veritas is gone. I mean,
it's done.
so what is I guess he starts something new. I guess he's gonna have lots of
All he has
funders.
to do is create a new entity.
Yeah.
That's all. Project Veritas 2 LLC.
Yeah.
Boom. You're right back in business, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
You can change the name and the fact
For
that
sure, but
the fact that his name's going to be on the domain, that's all that matters.
yeah, he's
That's
definitely.
good stuff. I tell you what, that'd be a really cool company to work for. I'll say that. He'd be really cool to work for. That'd be something really cool to do.
Yeah. You know,
That'll get your adrenaline pumping. When
for
you,
sure. You
and
start
try to
to
act.
open up.
You're in front of somebody, and to use the Bible as you can be as cunning as a snake.
Yeah.
To reveal truth without sinning. That's a way of really being cool and cunning as a snake, which we're called to do in our culture. That would be a really fun job.
Investigative reporting.
Yeah.
did you follow or did you know Adam? I'm having a brain fart now. The guy from the White Sox and Braves.
Adam Duvall.
Yeah. Did you know him?
I did not. Don't know him.
Okay. He and a couple of ball players, before he walked away from the White Sox during the offseason, he would go and pose as a buyer for underage women through these Christian foundations, and they would go after sex traffickers in like Thailand and the Philippines and stuff like that. I always thought that was. I mean, I thought the same thing. Adrenaline rushing, just kind of. Wow, you're doing God's work, and yet you're kind of you're doing something that's way out of character, right? I mean, he's such a family man, but he'd have to pose as some kind of sleazy guy to get these guys lured in. I think the summer before he was let go, I think they said they caught 100 and something sex traffickers over a 30-day period. Him and one of the other ball players went over posing as buyers.
That's a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it was like 2 or 3 a day. He was like, we were just cranking. He's a guy that I really would like sometime to get to hang out with. I guess following him. He was a Buck.
Are you talking about Adam LaRoche?
LaRoche.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
Adam LaRoche. That's who it is.
Oh, is still playing.
Yeah, that's why I thought you were talking about a current player, but
No.
Andy LaRoche, he started that organization, I think.
No, he got inspired by it. It was somebody from his church who asked him to be a part of it. And he was like, and he was like,
he's like all in on that now.
yeah. His E3 does a lot of that, and then he's an interesting character because he also did the Buck Commander, which was before Duck Commander, before the Duck Dynasty. Mm-hmm. He did what was called Buck Commander, and so him, a young country star named Luke Bryan, another country star, Jason Aldean, two of the Duck Commander guys, and a couple other ball players for the Braves, including the third baseman. Who's the great third baseman, all-star guy?
Current, former
All-star Hall of Famer.
Is he a switch hitter?
Yes.
And
Braves.
Switch hitting Hall of Fame.
I can think all about him. I can remember how he picked up a bunch of guys who got stuck in Atlanta, and he used his four-wheelers to get them out.
Crude man.
Yeah.
Switch
Where
hitter.
did he play?
He played when you played.
He played for he retired. He just made the Hall of Fame a few years
He's
back.
the greatest brace for third baseman of all time. Switch
Chipper
hitter.
Jones.
Yeah, Chipper.
Chipper, thank you. Chipper was part of that. Yeah, Chipper. All those guys were part of it. They went around and they would shoot deer. They would shoot or hunt deer.
I do remember briefly seeing that.
So, yeah. I always thought that was kind of cool that he was the deer hunter, and then obviously that I've always and then he walked away from the game over to the stuff of the sun. I always
never got to appreciate his career. He was Chipper Jones, because his first year was my last, so I never got a chance to really play against him. But
he
Smooth.
was so good. I mean, third base has been, I think about like the Cardinals. I think about the Braves. I mean, they've had some really good third basemen over the years.
Well,
so
it's an interesting position historically in baseball because it's the least represented position in the Hall of Fame. So when a good third baseman is, you notice them. You know what I
They
mean?
stick around.
yeah, but they never had the
stick out.
stats. I think the problem is they stick out to us. But I mean, Scotty Rowland almost didn't make the Hall of Fame, and yet, I mean, we all know how good he was.
He was good.
He just didn't dominate one stat. That was one of our conversations we had. They love the Hall of Fame. They love those sexy, big stats. Oh, you've hit this mark or you hit that mark, and you look at Scotty Rowland. Hopefully, his getting in is going to open up a lot more doors because he just had a really good career. I mean, he was a solid hitter or solid home runs.
I mean, my opinion, he was borderline Hall of Fame to begin with, so I understand why he only got in with 75% of it. And some of the guys that were ahead of him should have been in way before him anyway. So
Well, there's definitely a few that should have been in there. No disagreement there. But I mean, I think of his career and I think of who he is. I mean, 3,000. He
I think the Hall of Fame should be way bigger. You want it to be a thing, right? It represents your sport.
Well,
It's a famous hall. It's a hall of famous baseball players. Why would you limit it to numbers?
I always have
Like
said.
just if you did something extraordinary, you pitched 3 perfect games, but you never won 20 games.
That would be in there.
Go.
That would be in there. They do have a section of baseball that is not part of being introduced as a Hall of Famer.
That's my point.
It's still part. They still have historical events in there.
I think my personal opinion is they should be voted in as a Hall of Famer, regardless of how many years you play. If you do something extraordinary in the business that you play, or whatever, if you're the best lawyer, you should be reckoned. Even if you're a lawyer for 1 year and you do an extraordinary
Are they
case.
not doing that now, though? I mean, who would you give me an example who you think is a Hall of Famer that doesn't have quote unquote Hall of Fame numbers?
Who doesn't have Hall of Fame numbers, Susan?
Scott.
Like something that they do extraordinary.
Just give me a player that you thought, okay, when it comes to
I told you this. Who is that base runner? Not Ricky Henderson. The guy that got hurt for the Cardinals.
Vince
Coleman. Vince Coleman.
second all time.
Just put him in the hall. Put him in the Hall of Fame. He's the second greatest baseball running of during a game of all time in your sport, and you're not going to recognize him.
I don't disagree with you because Ozzie Smith, when it comes to statistics, offensively shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but he was had such an impact defensively. He changed the game.
Just put him in. And
Well, he was the first.
I know, but if he didn't, like the way you put him, just put him in and
I think
have
it
him
goes
be
back
a
to-
wizard
It took forever for a relief pitcher to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Who was the first one? Do you remember who the first one was? Was that Dennis Eckersley?
No, I don't. I really don't know.
Raleigh Fingers, maybe.
Maybe Raleigh Fingers, probably Bruce. I don't know. But
Bruce was up there. Yeah, he was the first closer, right?
Or like, here's a really good
Him
example.
and Lee?
Eric Gagne
Ooh.
will never be voted in,
no.
but he should be a Hall of Famer for the 3 years
Well,
he played baseball.
he's not going to get in. Let's just say, statistically, he's not going to get in because he's connected to steroids.
Well, there is a connection, but not. I don't think there's a trail.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. There's whispers and.
What do you think of, like,
Yes, he probably took it, but
I could
he
care,
gave
I could
3.
care less.
Yeah,
I-
he had 70 saves.
You're probably one of those purists that don't want any steroid guys in there, right?
what's that?
You're probably one of those purists that don't want any steroid guys in the Hall of Fame, right?
That's your opinion.
I'm asking you.
What do I think?
That's
I've always.
I've come to the conclusion this morning that you're a purist when it comes to baseball. Therefore, tell me if
I
I'm
think
right
they
or
should
wrong.
just make a part of the Hall of Fame that is acknowledged at this period of time. Did it? I think
That doesn't answer the question.
so, but yeah, it does because I think that those guys should be in it, but I think they should be acknowledged. Those who had records that were good, I think they should be in there. So like a Barry Bonds or
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
yeah, Mark McGuire should be in the Hall of Fame. They rescued the game. I think that there's nothing wrong with
Sammy
that.
Sosa?
Yeah, I think they should have their own, but I think it should be recognized.
Steroid section is what you're saying.
Right, like it should be recognized as this is an era of time.
How about an adultery section?
Well, I think that you could do it with, I don't know about adultery, but what about greenies?
Section.
What's that?
What about a racist section like Bob Feller?
Well,
or Ty
hey,
Cobb?
you're talking about that cheated, that broke the rules of baseball. Okay.
He's going through the morality thing, and he's trying to, he's pushing hard at me on my comment earlier, which he's made a good point. You made a good point about
It
it.
has to do with the way a lot of people think. That's what I'm saying. You're not the Lone Ranger on this. I've had this discussion with many people. So my point is, there's a lot of people who take the position that a baseball player shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if he's connected, not necessarily even busted, but connected to steroids. And I said, okay, so you want a steroid section, right? Okay, so
Well, I don't, now you've brought another thing. Are they connected or have they done it?
Racist section.
Yeah.
How about for Ty Cobb and all the racists that used to play the game?
Well, so let me rewind here. Let's go to the I'll help answer some of these questions maybe, but on my end. So I think that acknowledging the steroid period, okay, and those who aren't in, those who we don't know, I don't think we should make the conclusion, okay? Those who we do know, that's fine. Acknowledge that it was a period of baseball. I mean, it was a period in baseball. You can't change history. And just like when you're saying with racism, I think that we should acknowledge that was part of the game and acknowledge part of it. What's that?
You've already done that.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. So
that's not my point. My point is, if a guy used racist comments and publicly said, like Bob Feller did, was a
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Do you want a racist section? Yes or no?
So you're comparing
The
to
Hall of Fame. Do we need a section for racists? Is my point.
I think your point is, if you're going to do that for steroids, you have to do that for every single individual.
Do I think that we should have built? No, but I think we should acknowledge that they had maybe biases if they're public knowledge.
It's already public knowledge. So you didn't answer the question. Do we have a section for racists? You want a section for steroids. Do we have a section for racists? It's a simple question. It's a yes,
so
you're on the stand. It's a yes or no answer.
Well, but I think maybe I misunderstood too, because I'm saying when I say that we should acknowledge those guys should be in a Hall of Fame for what their accomplishments are. Is what I'm saying. But I think that we should acknowledge the period of time, just like we should acknowledge the racism
You
time.
answered the question. You just told me that you want a section for steroid players who are in the Hall of Fame. Have them and say this guy used steroids. Right?
Well, they were part of that period. Is what I'm saying.
So
they were part of that
you want
period.
a steroid period.
And we know that they were an accused user. They broke the rules of the game.
So you want that on.
But I also would say
want
that
that
about Pete
acknowledged.
Rose. I'd say that about Pete Rose. Pete Rose should be in
my point
the
is
Hall of Fame.
You want that on. You want that on the in the Hall of Fame that they were steroid users, right? You want to acknowledge that they use steroids, yes?
It should be they should be somewhere in the Hall of Fame. It should be acknowledged.
So should the Hall of Fame acknowledge that Ty Cobb and Bob Feller were racist and have a racist section? It's still the question's still unanswered.
It wouldn't be a bad thing. I think acknowledging their biases that was something.
So put that in the Hall of Fame. The racist section.
Well, I think acknowledging it, however you want to say it, if you want to call it a section.
You're not answering the question.
I'm trying to answer your question.
You're obfuscating the question.
No, I'm not trying to. So I'll make it simple. Yes.
Can I just interject here? I think the point is that there are steroid people that were never accused of or never penalized for taking steroids, right? Barry Bonds was never tested positive, not one time. Not one time did he test positive for steroids.
He was caught.
You got 6 guys in the Hall
No,
of Fame
he
that
was
used
not.
steroids.
He was on an investigation of people that were
He was never
in
busted.
the industry.
Yeah, he used the clear and he acknowledged it.
He acknowledged that he took steroids.
Yes, he acknowledged that he took the clear. And that's why he's lost
All
his.
right.
his
What
body fat.
about Mark McGuire? Did he ever acknowledge it?
Yes, he acknowledged. In fact, he said he would have done
Every
it.
single.
Okay. He would have done it at the congressional hearing, but he had to wait
did
till the
every
7 years.
single-
That's why he came back to the Cardinals after 7.
What about Mike Piazza?
I don't. Did he
Steroid
use him?
user?
Was he?
Absolutely, unequivocally a steroid user.
And we know. I mean, but I can't remember the Mitchell report. Did the Mitchell report have? I don't remember.
Can I get back to my point? The point is there are people that aren't in the Hall of Fame because of steroids or their association with it.
Right.
In order to get in the Hall of Fame, you want them to be recognized as associated with steroids.
I think they should be. No, what I said is they should be in the Hall of Fame, and I think we should recognize the period that happened with steroids.
Okay, so are there
Their accomplishments are worthy of it. I think Mark McGwire was a great hitter.
Are there any other people that are not in the Hall of Fame because of some other thing other than baseball? Like a Bob Feller. I don't know if Bob Feller's in the Hall of Fame. But if he wasn't in the
Hall of Fame.
Okay, but if he wasn't in the Hall of Fame because baseball deemed that he was too controversial of a person.
No, he was a racist.
Racist. If he was a racist and we're not putting him in the Hall of Fame because he's racist. You'd be okay with putting him in the Hall of Fame if racist was over above. Just like
you wouldn't have to put races above. I would just say it should be acknowledged that there was a period, and these are people who had.
What are you talking about? Racism from the time baseball was born until Jackie Robinson got in baseball.
It was embedded.
It was all over baseball.
Absolutely.
So therefore, you might as well just say all those white guys who played back in the 20s, 10s, 30s were all racist. Not all of them. Some were.
Absolutely.
All right. So
he answered your question. So yes.
So I would acknowledge that happened. I would say yes for these people.
So basically, the Hall of Fame's full of racists, right?
It has a lot of them in there, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we should talk about that and learn from it and move forward, right?
We already have. That's not the point. The point is that the Hall of Fame doesn't say anything about racism. You want a section that talks about steroids.
I think we should acknowledge that. We should talk about greenies when they were popular. Cocaine use.
If somebody walked into the Hall of Fame and didn't know that steroids happened and didn't know that all those baseball players were racist, what benefit is that to the person visiting the Hall of Fame to know that information?
What benefit?
Other than just reading about the person.
I think it's the history of the game. I just look at it as the history of the game, learning about the game and how it's evolved.
That's the history next to the history. That's not the history of baseball.
That's not the history of baseball. It's part of baseball, just like steroids was part of baseball. But my point, you want to categorize steroids as somehow some morally deeming, demented thing. It's all back to the morality clause.
Okay.
Okay. What about
your morality is so arbitrary that you got to either eliminate it or put everybody who has some kind of moral fault and tell everybody what it is.
I just wanted them in the Hall of Fame. That was my thing. I thought just because they use steroids, they should still be in the Hall of Fame because of their accomplishments.
You want a section.
I said that they should acknowledge the steroids.
Acknowledge what?
Why?
Why?
Yeah. Why say Mike Piazza? The only reason he's here is because of steroids.
I don't know if I'd say that the only reason he was here.
That's what a lot of voters are saying. That the only reason he's in because of steroids.
No, he's still got to have talent. He's got to have.
Mark McGwire definitely would not be in the Hall. Wouldn't be Hall of Fame worthy without him.
I don't know. You don't think?
No.
I don't know. He was a good hitter, hitting a lot of home runs before he did the steroids. Yeah, obviously, hitting 80 is a big deal, but he hit 48 for 50 his first few years before he started taking it. So
as far as you know,
I'm just saying a lot.
No, we know.
Well, and he might have gotten his mixtures right a couple of years later.
No, he didn't have his mixtures. So did you? So what I would hold on. Have you ever read you have to read both Juiced, which is.
I've read it.
Okay, and then you got to read the Mitchell report. Have you read that?
Read it.
Okay, so in those they go through all that. Mark McGwire was introduced to steroids his third, going in his third season.
That's what he says.
Jose can. Well, that's what they found out from the dealer, right? They followed. What was
You're
his name?
You're gonna believe a dealer?
Razmanovsky. Well, I mean, they got everybody. I mean, he found out about everybody.
The dealer was just going to talk to get less.
You don't. My point is, you don't. He might that dealer might have said that. The Mitch report might have said that.
So you think?
Yeah. What's an easy out? What's an easy out? Okay, I work here for. Let's just say I've worked. I'm going to work here for 5 years.
Yeah.
And after the 5th year, I get caught for embezzling money. Right? I embezzled money.
Okay.
From your company. Well, I get caught, right? And then everybody starts talking to me, and I can go, well, I'm not an embezzler. When you hired Andy, he showed me how to do it, and that's when I started doing it. kind of shifts the blame a little bit, right? Can you imagine maybe somebody shifting the blame when the opportunity arises?
I'm not denying that. I'm just saying I think that I'm not saying that the Mitchell report got everybody, but it seemed like with Mark McGuire's case, because he, in all fairness, he was the only one of the guys called to Congress that wanted to tell the truth too, right? I mean, he talked to him behind.
Out the point. When you put Mark McGuire in the Hall of Fame, how do you? Let me ask you this question: how do you acknowledge he took steroids? Do you put a needle like under his plaque?
Oh, I don't think he'd do anything. I think I go back and say I think you say from this period to this period there were players that
No, not players. Player that's in, because a lot of players did it.
right.
I mean, half the players were doing it for a 5 to 10 year period.
I think I finally understand your little fire now. You're saying you want from 1999 to 2009. This was okay. This is just an example.
Okay.
This is what I'm trying to visualize. What you guys are kind of bickering about.
I don't know. He asked me if I thought that.
I know. I'm trying to work this out in my own mind. You want a section, steroid era.
Yeah, just acknowledge it.
And then anybody in that era goes in there, and is
Everybody
in.
knows it.
But what about the people that played during that era that aren't on steroids?
I wouldn't acknowledge.
His point is you need a separate section for those who did and those who didn't. What about the Hall of Famers in that time period didn't take steroids? What are you going to do with them?
Oh, you don't. I mean, they wouldn't be included in that, right?
Oh, so you do need a section for steroids, is what you're saying.
As far as
Player
labeling. I think he has
user. What if I played in the same period and I'm in the Hall of Fame as Mark McGuire, and Mark McGuire's in and I'm in? Are you going to put me in the steroid section?
No, of course not.
So you do need a steroid section, is what you're telling me.
I was thinking he would be in the non-steroid section. It would just be acknowledging. It would say these players were, we are known or we're attached to them within the Hall of Fame.
So you're like an asterisk guy. You want an asterisk.
Kind of that, I guess you would say. Kind of the asterisk, I guess. I would just say.
So therefore, if I didn't get caught, how do you know I didn't do it in that period?
Well, there's no way we're ever going to know all that.
So why even do it?
Why acknowledge this? You're not going to know unequivocally. You don't know what the truth is my point.
Okay. So.
And so you're revealing something that might not.
So what would your thought be? Should they all be in without not acknowledging them?
Whether the guy for 15 years was the best player in his generation at his position. End of story. He didn't. No laws were broken. Now, if you go out and kill somebody, that might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
You end up in jail for 15 years. That might eliminate you.
So I agree on that. I kind of said that. I just thought they should acknowledge the period of time somewhere. I didn't say individually. I think the difference is you're saying individually.
If I was in that steroid era, why would you be in that?
I think the thing that you're.
None of these people were ever convicted.
I agree. So
you don't even know if Barry Bonds was telling the truth when he admitted it.
So hold on here.
That might have just been something they said to get rid of it.
Okay. Well, I just have always thought that everybody should be in under accomplishments in the Hall of Fame, which that we agree on. I just thought that you acknowledge in the Hall of Fame, don't they acknowledge the history of the game, and somewhere in there that you would acknowledge that this was a period where steroid abuse.
Acknowledge. What does that mean?
What's that?
What does that mean? Acknowledge. You keep saying acknowledge. You keep using the word acknowledge.
Well, you kind of document the history, right? That this was a period of time where we didn't have African Americans playing.
My documentation, if I didn't use them, am I going to be on that documentation section?
I'm not.
Am I going to be in that 15-year period?
What I'm saying is that we're not saying we acknowledge the period happened, not necessarily acknowledge individuals, though.
Everybody knows the period happened. What's that got to do with?
Well, you're documenting it for future generations.
What?
You're documenting it for future generations, right?
People aren't going to have Google 100 years from now?
I don't know. Hopefully, but we'll see. Things keep evolving and come and go.
You're still separating the issue. You still haven't answered the question.
Well, the point is sure, that might sound hunky-dory to start. Like hey, we got these people that are in steroids, right? But what does that devolve into?
Yeah.
If it's not purely just the numbers of the people, what else does it devolve into? Because there were people that were
My bigger thing was just I always thought they should be in the Hall of Fame based on their accomplishments.
What about the players that beat their wife? There's probably somebody.
Well, sure.
So do we need a wife beating Hall of Fame?
So I think I kind of was a little bit pinned into this argument because
I'm just asking questions.
no, you asked me if I believed, and then my argument has always been I just thought they should all be in there. I thought Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, how they wanted to do it and acknowledge it or not acknowledge it, I really don't care. I think they.
Acknowledging it.
What?
Now you're backing off
No.
acknowledging it. You just told me you need to acknowledge it.
I never said we need. I said they could. I said they should. Maybe they should. I don't know. I've just always thought that they should be in there.
Okay.
So they're not in there now.
Right.
That's always my argument.
We agree on that.
I've had people go say, should they do an asterisk or something like that? I'm like, well, sure, maybe you could do that. I don't care.
Because then you have to go back and label everybody. There's a guy who's in the Hall of Fame that you spitball every time.
Sure.
This is spitball. This guy. Hey, just so you know, this guy was a spitballer. That's how he got all these stats.
And so.
He's a steroid user.
And I guess in my thought, it wasn't necessarily labeling everybody individually, like this was a spitballer or this guy was a racist. Just kind of like a history of the evolution of the game, acknowledging those periods that were in there.
I'd be really pissed off if you put me in that.
But I wasn't saying put individual periods.
I know what you got to do. Put like an extra star above my name because he made the Hall of Fame without using steroids.
That'd be great. I'm joking. I love it.
Yes.
Right,
you can't delineate stuff. All right, let's get you a sign
2
up.
hours enough?
I don't care. Whatever you. We just always sit here and talk. Sometimes we talk an hour, and sometimes we talk 2 hours. We just have a good time when we edit it out.
I had
And
a great time. I love talking. You kidding me?
we love having a good time. We want to have you back. So it's.
By the time I come back, you'll have in your brain, in your heart, the clarity of the steroid issue.
All right.
At some point, I think we got your wheels turning. So
I love it. Any words of wisdom for us?
none.
Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you close this in a word of prayer?
All right. Lord, it's been an interesting couple hours, and we just hope that you were glorified through it. A lot of times our humanity gets in the way of our spirit, and so we're guilty of that. We just want to acknowledge that we're just at your mercy, and what you've done through your Son, Jesus Christ, we are always thankful, and help us to be always mindful of that. We ask that you build up our relationships with each other, but more so with your Son, Jesus Christ, and it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
I wish you were a Hall of Famer. So
I do too. I think he should be.
No,
that was it. That was my dad.
That was your dad.
That was my dad.
Your dad is a cool
He's
dude.
not passionate at all.
Not at
He
all.
doesn't really believe what he says.
Well, you know what I thought was funny? It was like even with the steroid thing. Like I was kind of like the whole time I was like, I'm really on your side. I would love him in Hall of Fame. I think Mark McGwire should be in.
Yeah,
So-
but the fact that you would want,
I don't really care if that was there. That was something he asked me. Would I do that?
I just think it's so overshadowing to the Hall of Fame that you either put him in as a Hall of Famer and leave everything else out, or you leave them all out. I don't think you can mix the two. I think it just gets muddy, and it could.
I get that, and that makes sense. I mean, talking about it out when we were talking is passion, but talking it out, it makes all the sense in the world that you wouldn't want to do that because the point was made. I mean, how do you?
You're gonna have to go back through every single Hall of Famer and.
Yeah, you'd have to.
People are going to pick that apart. Oh, you have a steroid section. Why don't you have a section where people are calling black people the N-word in the newspaper after?
Yeah. There's no end to it. You're really now. You're gonna every individual would be.
Yes.
Would have something on.
You're either in as a baseball player who did something well, or you're not.
Yeah, and that fair enough. That sounds like a great thing to me. I just think that the guys who have not been in there, I look at like Roger Clemens. I look at a lot of guys I looked up to as a kid that were great ball players who aren't in it, and I think that's a shame. But Andy Pettit, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, and I think about what they mean to the game and what they meant to the game back then.
Yeah.
I look at it and go, wow, it's a shame that they're not in, that they're being held against that. So, all right, well, hey. Thank you for joining Scott and me, and as you see,
my dad he got up and left pretty quick.
He had a cruise, but we enjoyed Andy, and hopefully we'll have him back for some more gab, whether it be baseball, politics, dadhood, all sorts of fun stuff. We enjoy it.
I'm gonna keep listening to our conversations that we have together, and I'm gonna pick something that I know is gonna make my dad passionate like that again.
Oh,
we'll get him back on here.
He was passionate. That was he was getting red. He got that real red too. Loved it. All right. Well, hey, Don't forget to like and subscribe and continue to follow us. We appreciate it. And we'll be back at you on Thursday. Thursday, real quickly, got a cool episode. We're going to be hearing from Valentina if all goes well. Valentina grew up in inner city St. Louis. She's an entrepreneur, but more than that, she's a great mom. Her son was shot multiple times with the mass shooter that came into the school not all that long ago here in St. Louis, about 4 to 6 months back. So
He's doing well. He's okay.
yeah, he is good, and we're going to hear her story of how God has grown her from that, and her story of stuff. So that'll be good. That'll be really good. So have a great day. Thank you so much, and
Like and subscribe.
that's it. Hey, thanks, guys. Catch ya.
Thank you.